religious teachings and some teachings of the ancients, and why certain people had a mission or a cause. With Alexander or Galileo or whoever, there are certain people that do it. And
Are you one of those people?
my cause is to stop the American murder of the white race.
But has it been your cause for as long as you can remember?
I don't think I was fully conscious of it. If you've read my work, you know I felt for a long time that there was something terribly wrong in the environment of the country. And I spent a long time searching for who had the power. You want to find out why things happen. Let's find out who has the power. And then I have to find motivations more than anything else to find why things happen. You have to see the benefits.
Let's see what's on
The benefits. And it took a long time. I went through. If you read my works, you know I consider conservatives and right-wingers and John Birchers and so on to be the issue. I have very little use for it.
I want to go back to the 14 words that you said at the beginning. We must secure the existence of our people in the future for white children. Was that essentially what the order, the British writing, the term you want to use, what that book was all about?
Yeah, I'd like to make it clean. I'm not qualified, authorized, or even permitted to speak for the individual members of the group.
But is that what you understand?
My understanding, you see, I only attended the first of each meeting. And in fact, I was a small player in the group. More than anything else, the group was Bob Matthews. It was nothing but Bob Matthews' combination of ability, courage, and charisma could have brought together such a diverse, strong-minded group of men, many of them with, for instance, different religious views and common cause.
Do you remember the first meeting about that?
I don't remember the first meeting. I do need it written me a few times. They're back around 81 or something. I'm not sure.
And how would you even know who you were? To write you?
I think I have written articles for various publications, probably the records.
What it is about?
Politics, religion, something political.
But in the, when he might have written to you, what were you doing at that point? What was your involvement in the movement at that point?
I spent years, I would say, penetrating the different groups in this mythical and non-existent movement.
Non-existent?
I believe if something has absolutely no validity, if it gets nowhere, if it constantly goes backwards and loses, I wouldn't even give it the name of movement. A movement has dynamics. I found that in all the years of times that I looked, I found that.
Nothing with National Alliance, nothing with Aryan Nations, nothing with the other groups that were out there that would suggest they were part of the movement. You were the Aryan Nations Association.
I had an association. I had an association with all kinds of groups. I had to find out why nothing worked.
Why none of their efforts worked?
I mean, from the entire world, probably the best known group, Aryan Nations, once a year with luck can draw 300 people. There's 300 people without local honor about some porno movie. That's no movement.
And that's what you were seeing back in the early 80s.
That's what I've been seeing in the so-called right wing for 30 years.
Why do you think that is? What conclusions did you draw?
Human nature, the media, money. A man, for example, I had a real estate license. They take my real estate license away because I only worked for the murder of my race by promoting immigration.
You wouldn't sell those to blacks.
In white neighborhoods. That's genocide. Always remember, racial immigration is genocide. Racial immigration is deliberate, malicious genocide.
But we keep saying to follow the...
We have to do it in every aspect of American life. A white man has to commit treason against the existence of his own kind. Do it all the job.
You said that people didn't really know what Matthews had in mind when he called this gathering. You didn't know what was going on in his head, if he had plans?
Just speaking for myself, I don't think so. I think there was a common feeling that the government needs to mix, overrun, and destroy our kind, and a common feeling that there was nothing productive being done in resistance. There was talk, as I remember, about Bob Matthews wanted to create, he called it a white basket.
Right, in the early 80s.
Yeah, he wanted to move people into an area around Fort Washington. But other than that, I just remember what you got to meet.
In fact, it's funny, because when talking to Richard Camp, he told us that at one point there was a poster where he was asked to pose with Ken Law's children, and that was going to be the poster for the American Bastard, because he was quite a handsome young man, and with these beautiful children, as a way to get interest out there, to come into Medellin Falls and creating this.
Well, propaganda is a legitimate part of any story.
Absolutely. We would love to see the poster, but nobody can seem to find it. But he remembers that distinctly, that you know, there was a real effort made, but as you said, you saw no action within the movement. Well, nobody was flocking to Medellin Falls here. My sense, Matthews was fairly disturbed that he didn't get much of a reaction.
It all boils down to money. You know, if you make a public statement, you're a white man for the life of your race. You no longer have a job. Your media comes down like hungry sharks in a feeding frenzy with all the buzzwords. Oh, Nazi, hater, bigot, when you say, we're just resisting genocide, you're a Nazi, a hater, a bigot, we stuck up a broken record. And it's great. What's the man to do?
But aren't you also advocating the destruction of others? You say they destroy you,
Have you ever seen any of that in any of my writings? I've never seen such thing.
advocating the destruction of others?
Good. I don't think you have. I said that we must have our own nation for the preservation of our own kind.
Can I just read from some of your writing?
All right. Maybe I'm wrong.
Maybe I'm reading into it, but... Wotan, and that's your name, the Armed Party will be Aryan Nation.
Correct.
Wotan is ruthless, mature, capable, self-motivated, silent, deadly, and able to blend into the masses.
Correct.
Wotan has a complete revolutionary attitude. He's loyal to those who share his cause. All others are expendable.
That's correct.
Doesn't that suggest that...
Oh, no, that doesn't mean you violate the cat. Clearly, if you go on into that article or into all of my writings, you'll find that the enemy, I repeatedly state, is those of our own rights to be treason.
But when you say expendable, what does that mean?
That means that in a war, there are usually incidents. Always have to. It's unfortunate. We didn't ask for this war. We're not going to accept the murder of our race because there are going to be innocent victims of the war.
But you're not even suggesting they're innocent victims. You're suggesting... And you're looking around, you are involved with Aryan Nation, but you're looking around, you're not saying anything being done.
Correct.
And you are convinced that the white race is essentially being eradicated in front of your very eyes and nobody's doing anything about it. More specifically, no white people, the ones you would assume would do something about it.
Yes.
So you're a frustrated man, I would assume, in the early 80s.
Loaded word, frustrated.
Well, you pick the word. It is, and I don't want to get into all the possible connotations, but you pick the word. That's what it sounds like.
Let me think about that. If a man watches the death of his race, he's sad. I suppose that's a good thing.
Angry?
I find anger to be a non-protective. I get, once in a while I get angry if I start talking about it better or whatever. But I'm very understanding to each. I don't get angry. I'll tell you an incident. One day I was with Bob Matthews in a major city that will have to go unnamed. And we saw a little white girl get off of a school bus with a couple of little black boys. And they're fooling around in some sexual fortune plate or something. And Bob Matthews immediately, I'd like to shoot her right now.
Shoot the little girl.
Yes. Well, she's doing great treason.
By doing what?
By betraying her race. That's Bob Matthews' way of it. I said, no, Bob, that's not right. From the time she was a tiny baby, her preacher, teacher, her school, her religion, her newspapers, her television, every possible sensory stimulation said, the most noble, wonderful thing you could do is mix your race out of existence. We're going to expect this little girl to make a moral judgment about whether that's proper. I'm not angry. I'm saying,
Bob and Charlie.
Bob, and that's just a gut reaction. The males of every race and species are given an instinct by nature to preserve their own kind. There's a natural antipathy between every race and species in order to preserve the individuality and existence of each. And the males are supposed to defend the existence of their own kind. So there's anger. It's understandable. I look at it in a little bit bigger picture.
The Order has everything. Extremism, fanboy delusions, accelerationism, violence, drugs, counterfeiting, robberies, abandoned families.
When we were drug addicts, prostitutes, robbing people, selling drugs to our own people, and got sent to prison, it was two men and a woman who uplifted the prisoners. Elsie Christensen, David Lane, and Ron McVan. These were the men and women who reached out to us and helped us and made us who we were. It's time for us to once again uphold that wokeness and wokeness vote banner, because these so-called older groups, older organizations, they never thought we would last. They thought we would be a fleeting moment. But look at us, 30, 35 years, however long. Look at us now.
The Order wanted to fund the rest of the radical right to create essentially an army of white men.
To fund their plan, the Order attacked an armored truck on a highway in California in broad daylight in a brazen robbery.
This is the middle of the day.
That FBI agents were shipped onto this rural island in Washington state prepared to do battle.
The FBI finally finds out that Matthews is holed up in a cabin on Whidbey Island and that he's heavily armed.
Bob refused to surrender. We were met with gunfire. I took about 7 rounds just over my head.
After a 36-hour standoff, a flare ignited the cabin and Matthews burned to death. The other members of the order were quickly arrested. During its investigation, the FBI uncovered plans to poison major water supplies and threats to hang members of Congress, and they found the gun used to murder Alan Berg.
These guys were for real.
Prior to the order, domestic terrorism was like, what's that? Klansmen had killed civil rights workers and so forth, but this was a new breed of animal.
It was a wake-up call that the white supremacist movement was a growing danger. The federal government believed the order was not acting alone and that their crimes were part of a larger plot orchestrated by the leaders of several far-right groups, including Richard Butler.
Were you the leader of this conspiracy? No, I was not.
In a bold move, prosecutors brought 9 of them to trial on charges of seditious conspiracy.
The idea was that they could wipe out this movement in one fell swoop.
And I'm just doing my duty.
The government's key witness was James Ellison, a former extremist leader. He testified that he attended secret meetings at the Aryan World Congress, meetings he described to his deputy, Kerry Noble.
Jim said most of the plans included counterfeiting money, robbing armored cars to help finance the right-wing movement.
Just all the men on alert.
Noble, who also testified for the government, says Ellison claimed movement leaders were in on the order's plan.
This was real. A real ideology, a real goal for people.
But Ellison also had credibility problems. He liked to call himself King James of the Ozarks, contradicted himself on the witness stand, and was trying to get a reduced sentence. His testimony was not enough.
A stunning verdict this afternoon in the trial of 13 white supremacists.
The defendants were acquitted of all charges, every single one of them.
Thought we proved it beyond a reasonable doubt, but apparently we hadn't.
The defendants left the courtroom triumphant and defiant.
1, I want to praise Yahweh's holy and precious name. 2, I want to say to hell with the federal government.
To kind of add insult to injury, one of the jurors actually married one of the defendants. The government had tried to destroy the radical right in America, and it failed abjectly.
Everybody knew it'd be a long time before the government would ever try that kind of thing again. That emboldened the right-wing movement a little bit more.
To avoid the attention of law enforcement, some in the movement embraced a different tactic, operating in small cells.
3 to 5 people. Even stronger is the lone wolf that communicates with nobody and can go out autonomously and do whatever.
We managed to dissolve the order. However, we didn't make any impact on the ideology. The ideology still existed all across this country.
April 19, 1995.
About a third of the building has been blown away.
A Ryder rental truck with 5,000 pounds of explosives ripped through the Alfred P. Murrah Federal Building in Oklahoma City. 168 people were killed, 19 children among them.
I thought, who has come in here and done this terrible thing?
The film delves into the rise of white nationalist militias in the 1980s and 2 later events that galvanized the country and deeply influenced Oklahoma City bomber Timothy McVeigh.
It's the new thing in America. It's called the militia.
The siege of Ruby Ridge in 1992, when the FBI and U.S. Marshals confronted Randy Weaver at his home in rural Idaho, resulting in the deaths of Weaver's wife, son, and a U.S. Marshal. And the following year, Waco, Texas, when federal agents, responding to reports of weapons stockpiling, attempted to arrest the leader of a religious sect known as the Branch Davidians. A firefight broke out, killing 10, including 4 ATF agents. And after a 51-day standoff, the complex went up in flames as agents moved in with tear gas. More than 70 people died.
Just arrived today.
During the long standoff, then 24-year-old Army veteran Timothy McVeigh had been watching nearby.
Timothy McVeigh himself was not a member of a militia, but you're convinced that that context is the way to understand him?
Without question. He was steeped in the ideas of this movement. He was steeped in the ideology. It's a very diffuse movement, and being a member of a militia is really sort of irrelevant.
They had no idea who did it.
It shows how much confusion there was initially about who had carried it out, and the surprise when McVeigh was arrested.
I think everybody felt this sudden sense of betrayal. I think everyone thought, you're one of us.
I would say that this is a movement that waxes and wanes throughout American history and sort of appears in different forms, whether it's, going back to Shays' Rebellion at the beginning of the history of our country up through the Red Scare, the Klan years. There's a lot of different manifestations.
It took less than 2 hours before Timothy McVeigh was captured, pulled over by an Oklahoma State trooper.
He was stopped on a highway with a license plate that had fallen off.
The FBI had its man.
Am I pure evil? Am I the face of terror?
But he did not act alone. Within 48 hours, connections were made between McVeigh and an address in Kingman, Arizona.
We identified Michael and Lori Fortier.
McVeigh and Fortier served in the Army together. In fact, McVeigh was living with Fortier a few months before the bombing.
We sent SWAT team up there. We sent a bunch of investigators initially.
Kenneth Williams worked 30 years with the FBI. He was the special agent in charge of the Fortier investigation.
We had several hundred agents up there.
The FBI interviewed Fortier multiple times, more than a dozen hours, but his story remained the same.
I can't believe that he was going to do this. I had no knowledge that he was going to do that.
Top officials with the FBI believe Fortier, but Williams wasn't buying it.
You get a gut feeling sometimes.
Slowly but surely, he was finding holes in Fortier's story.
Michael Fortier was lying to his co-workers.
Search warrants of Fortier's trailer provided more evidence. More than 100 detonators were discovered by the home.
They would blow things up out in the Arizona desert.
The evidence was mounting. Williams interviewed Fortier again, this time showing him pictures of the victims. Many were kids.
He pushed away from the table, and he said, "What about all the kids you guys killed in Waco, Texas?"
That is when Williams knew Fortier was involved in the bombing. But to what extent? Another picture would be the final piece of the puzzle. It was Michael's wife, Lori.
This was a picture where she was semi-naked.
Taken on a day Michael was at the Prescott VA hospital by none other than Timothy McVeigh.
And that broad was just staring at me like a goddamn double cheeseburger.
His question to me was, what kind of deal can you give me? I will give you everything.
She said that Brad told her Westfall and his crew, your crew, was responsible for the murders of the girls in Delphi and a fire that killed 2 girls.
Fortier may not have been in Oklahoma at the time of the bombing, but he and his wife likely knew what would happen.
I think, yes, he is just as responsible for the deaths of those people.
The federal government saw it differently. Given a plea deal, Fortier was sentenced to just 12 years. His wife granted immunity.
At the end of the day, I think he got probably one of the biggest deals I've ever seen in my professional career.
McVeigh is the epitome of the lone wolf. But even a lone wolf still has to be part of something that gets them to that point. When later asked about the 19 children that were killed, he said that he felt bad that happened, but that was just part of the follow-on of war.
It was an act of cowardice, and it was evil.
I recently watched a movie called The Shack. And there's also a book that talks so well about evil, about death, and about eternity.
This is religion-based.
This is. And even though it's about forgiveness and faith, he doesn't say those words. He says evil, death, and eternity.
And I think the best part, right, of this whole case right now is that he's suffering. He's freaking out. He's looking over his shoulder.
Got every agency in the government coming out after people. That scares you. If you're in the movement, you start to see the reality of what could happen.
The government crackdown and the horror of the Oklahoma City attack helped lead to the decline of organized militias, many of which condemned the bombing. By the end of the 90s, they had all but disappeared.
People kind of go to ground, but the problems did not go away at all. It was still there. It just went underground a little bit.
I was only fighting by the rules of engagement that were introduced by the aggressor. Waco started this war. Hopefully Oklahoma would end it.
Urbeck says he picked Oklahoma City for a reason.
It was out there in the open. It could easily be seen, and he felt that it would make a very striking visual.
It's literally like the Globe Theater. This is actually the most wide open area of any of the woods surrounding here. It looks literally staged. This killer came here dumped the bodies in an area where he wasn't particularly trying to conceal them. I think he was actually trying to present them in a certain way.
The discussions were about, why did he do this? Where did he come from? And who is he connected to?
And inside McVeigh's yellow Mercury sedan, investigators discovered a sealed envelope containing evidence that would prove crucial to analyzing McVeigh's motivations. Authorities never did tie the National Alliance to the Oklahoma City bombing, pinning the devastating crime on McVeigh and a few accomplices, including Terry Nichols and Michael Fortier. But it became clear that McVeigh's ties to white power groups ran deep.
They're brothers in arms, and that is, they're survivalists or quasi-survivalists, and I can get along with them real well.
Whether it was a Nazi, whether it was a white supremacist, whether it was a survivalist, whether it was a militiaman, he would have fully embraced their views.
Absolutely sad and tragic that most of us knew very little about the development of the movement. We didn't know how far the tentacles reached.
Organization out there called the Southern Poverty Law Center. They have, it's a group of liberal, left-wing, hard-left activists who've been given power by the United States government to stand and point at anybody they want and say racist, terrorist, Nazi, whatever. If you don't believe in their ideologies, you're a hate group. And they have labeled the VSC that. Every single patriot group, pro-American group, pro-Constitution, not pro-government, pro-Constitution, they're all hate groups to these people.
6 months prior to the bombing in Oklahoma City, the Southern Poverty Law Center sent a letter to then Attorney General Janet Reno. And we talked about what we were seeing in terms of the threat from the anti-government movement. We just saw more and more of this kind of thing happening on the ground.
President, will this prompt the United States or the government to take a new and a tougher look at the white supremacist groups, the hate groups, the militias? Is this going to trigger any kind of crackdown?
Let me say that we need to finish this investigation now.
I don't really think that there was an understanding of how much of a threat we were dealing with within our own country. Man who's immediately, I'd like to shoot her right now. Shoot her.